G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/JustnoHOA. Now with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a like on this video and a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some bloody good content. Posted by user Mote of Labrosse, titled, Being Considered an Unauthorized Boarder by HOA, cross-post from r/ScrewHOA. Well, over a decade ago, I was forced to move back in with my dad. Was only planning to stay a few months till I was financially stable enough to get my own place once again, but my dad insisted I stay rent-free while I got my car paid off and some serious dental work done. This lasted 4 years. My dad owns a really nice place in a subdivision that had an HOA. For about 2 of those 4 years, things went fine, until a woman who I shall aptly call Karen became head of the HOA. Me and Karen had some unfortunate run-ins in the past. She would constantly ask my dad how long until I move out. Then she would always report me and my dad to the HOA for the silliest things, which the HOA would usually ignore, or at best dismiss after getting our side of the story. But now that she was in control, she took direct action. The first was to declare me as an unauthorized boarder after instituting a bylaw that all adults 21 and older in a household have to be registered with the HOA as a permanent resident with a minimum of 5 years they have to stay without penalizing the homeowner. My dad refused to do any such thing because I would eventually be getting my own place. But Karen insisted, even serving him 2 years of backdated penalties for having me there. My dad ended up having to spend money on a lawyer to send her a cease and desist order because I was legally grandfathered in, since I was there before the bylaw. Of course, the fines were begrudgingly dropped, but afterwards she would try to nickel and dime my dad with constant little things like me being out at all hours of the night, I worked late, or the way I dressed in public being inappropriate, jeans and a band t-shirt mostly, and other stupid crap that most of which weren't in the bylaws. She even took to using a selfie stick over the fence to see if there was anything in the backyard violating the rules. I since moved out of there, and a year or so later, Karen was voted out of the HOA after pissing off the wrong people. Reminds me of a sing-along. Thanks to James Bond and Paul McCartney for the inspiration. You used to say, live and let live, say HOAs bye. Honestly, I don't know the words to this song, I'm sorry. Posted by user FredKing1313, titled, How to Kill an HOA. Okay, so here's what's up. Me and my wife have been getting harassed by a new HOA to join, as my house is the lone holdout on a beachfront strip. Short and sweet. I write this today because, my friends, I have discovered the 2-step process to kill an annoying HOA. With my highly evolved ape brain, I have spent the weekend scouring the laws and legal loopholes, and have, through a series of quantum calculations that will only make sense to me, I have found the means to kill the HOA anywhere. Step 1. Organize your community and friends at the next meeting. Have someone or yourself call for no confidence and vote to remove all HOA board members. Vote in new members. Step 2. Have new president. Vote to overturn all standing fines. Then end meeting with a vote to dissolve the HOA entirely. Any properties owned by the HOA are to be sold off to pay any debts owed by the HOA. Record everything. Then turn a copy of the video into the governing body where you live as proof. And Grodon too, what a downer, he reckons that doesn't make much sense, since if you have the numbers to vote in a new board, you can vote for a board that works properly. Everyone has something to gain from an HOA working well. Grodon, this is not a HOA support sub, get out of here. Posted by user Jake Simpai, titled, You Should Follow Your Own Rules. Not my story, but my dad's. Also not technically HOA, but I think in the spirit of it. Let me know if it's not. Anyway, so when I was 2, my dad bought the house I grew up in. It was a major fixer-upper. In total, he probably put $100,000 fixing it up, if not more. So this is where the story comes in. The city building inspector informed my dad that because it was documented that he spent over $50,000 improving his property, he would have to build a sidewalk, but only in front of his house. The expense would come out of his pocket. If anyone injured themselves on the sidewalk that abruptly started and abruptly ended, he'd be responsible for that as well, along with upkeep. It would also cut about 3 feet into the front yard and would permanently lower the property value. Now, at the time that this happened, the city had completely renovated a park playground costing well over the $50,000, and this was public knowledge. Also, the park was within viewing distance of our house and had 2 historic trees within feet of the road. My dad wrote a letter to the mayor's office and worded the cover letter in such a way that they would have to publicly read the entire letter out during a public meeting. The letter basically said to lead by example and put in a sidewalk at the newly renovated park, meaning they'd have to cut down 2 historic trees. The public was outraged, and after that, the building inspector basically let him renovate the house however he liked, and there is still no sidewalk. Yeah, don't want to get treble damages on that r/tree law now, do we, buddy? Ha ha! Man's found a way to outsmart the HOA. Got him! Posted by user Clooney Anna, titled, "Don't Stand So Close to Me, Pesticides and COVID-19. New to Reddit. Please instant message me if I'm doing something incorrectly. In Florida, we're trying to do yard maintenance, and our property has a public sidewalk in front of it. We are required by the HOA to maintain the sidewalk in front of our property, pressure wash, etc., and the grass in the front of the sidewalk near the street as well. People keep walking closer than 6 feet to us while we're working. Someone in the house is on chemo, and we will be spraying pesticide. Are we allowed to temporarily block the sidewalk off to stop people from coming near us or the pesticides while we work? It would only be for about an hour. Thank you so much. We have thought about hiring someone, but money is an issue right now with the loss of income." I would say no, because the sidewalk itself is public property and most likely a utility easement. If anything, use some wood stakes and loggers tape to kind of warn people if necessary. Thank you. No, don't block the sidewalk. Hopefully you're wearing a mask while spraying pesticides, so the fact that they walk close shouldn't be an issue. What I would do is very obviously step back 6 feet when someone comes close. If they say something, you can tell them you prefer to maintain a safe distance to prevent the spread of the virus. Also put a small sign up that you've applied pesticides because of kids and pets. Wearing a mask is to provide protection to others in case you're infected and don't realize it. If they have it and are not wearing the mask and cough in your direction, your mask does very, very, very little. I want to print your comment on post-it notes and aggressively put it on the forehead of every jerk who looks at me funny for wearing a mask in public. Eventually, I would probably get my ass kicked, but maybe that would make the point go viral. No pun intended. Oh, humanity. Turn the pressure washer on them. Trust me, it will keep them back at least 6 feet. Apply pesticide with spare hand while fending off people with the pressure washer. Okay, sarcasm aside, maybe greet them as they approach and explain that someone inside is immunocompromised and see if they would mind walking around or waiting for you to retreat the proper distance. If they are neighborhood members, take it up with your HOA and see if they have any bylaws applicable or could vote on something beneficial to everyone until this is done. Good idea. Couldn't hurt to have the HOA address this if this goes on a long time. We're in Florida, so quite a few older couples in our neighborhood as well. I've seen older neighbors duck into their driveways when they're working on their yards when runners come past and make no effort to avoid them. I mean, how big is your neighborhood? If I blocked off the sidewalk in front of my house for an hour, wouldn't be a big deal. People would understand. Hoping not, but with everyone home, I always wonder if the HOA police are watching more. Thank you. And from the posts on this sub, HOA is always watching. Always watching, Wazowski. Bloody bastards. Posted by user Kaleal, titled Just Venting. I've been in this house for a year, and of course I never saw or received any bylaws. Apparently, my trash cans have to be in a certain location behind my fence. This morning at 7 AM, I woke up to the sound of trash cans moving, but I didn't think anything of it and figured my neighbors across the street who I already don't get along with were moving their trash cans. I went out this morning and found out that one of my neighbors, I think it's the one that I don't like, had come into my backyard, placed the trash cans there, and dumped out some cans of water that I had. I'm definitely annoyed since I live alone and really don't love the fact that people think it's okay for them to just enter my backyard. None of your neighbors has any business coming into your backyard without your permission, even if they think they're helping you to comply with the HOA rules. That is trespassing. If you know who did it, send a letter reminding them of that and putting them on notice that if they do it again, you will contact the police. If you're worried, get a security camera. I definitely would, but I'm putting the house up for rent, so right now isn't really a good time. Good, security can up rental value. Are you sure they weren't just trying to be helpful? Just say something to them if you know who it is. No need to be aggressive about it. That will only make tensions worse, and no need for that. If they don't abide, then turn on the aggression next time. Helpful or not, it's still trespassing. If they had good intentions, they should have spoken to OP by knocking on the door, then explained the discrepancy. They could have even been helpful and offered to move it afterwards. They could have been trying to be helpful, but this person was right next to my bathroom window, doing things in my backyard at 7 in the morning, so I'm not just crazy about that. Hope you can work it out with them with a friendly word. I mentioned the helpful possibility just because I've heard people promoting being helpful and assisting neighbors during these stressful times, especially seniors. Not sure if you fall into the senior category, but I've even heard bringing in trash cans as one of the neighborly things people could do. Posted by user Insurance Throwaway 123, titled, HOA President just did the dumbest thing imaginable. Backstory. I own a bunch of rentals in a bunch of communities. I'm no stranger to HOAs and legal battles. I have a company attorney on retainer. I just moved into a community and finally bought myself a house I plan to stay in for a while. A month after closing, construction starts. Permits pulled, all legal work during the day, follow all the CCRs, etc. Karen recently got elected to the board, and in her own words, the war is on. This war started when I requested the following: HOA financial documents, 2 months, and they do not have them produced. A temporary, reasonable accommodation after a major surgery, I was told to go screw myself, and her husband changing his oil in the parking lot. Got it on video on my security cam. So far, I've received 4 violation notices. Speeding in the parking lot, political sign, which is opponent to her political sign in her front yard. Violation of peaceful enjoyment, which is construction noise. Harassing the HOA, this one was a cease and desist. And destruction of community property for washing my car with a hose. So my attorney goes to work on the upcoming fight. My attorney BCCs me on all emails to the association and to the management company. I wish I was making this up. Karen is so fudging stupid, she replied all on an email meant for just the property manager. A few snippets: I'm going to keep fighting him and make his life hell. He's a nightmare and a punk kid with too much money. We are going to drown him in lawyer's fees and send him the bill until he finally submits to me. This is now personal. I'm on a mission to show the punk kid with his parents' money that I'm goddamned president and he will do as I say. My lawyer called me 6 times at 10:30 last night and said, holy crap, check your email. 9 a.m, my attorney sent a cease and desist to the entire board and included a copy of the email. Mine and his phone have been blowing up non-stop from the 4 other board members and their attorney just trying to talk. This woman may be the stupidest person on earth. I honestly cannot wait to see the fallout from this. I don't want to sue the association or to get paid. I just want the board to make decisions that have good impacts on the community. And raise my property value. Suing the board honestly does nothing. The insurance company pays for it, or it comes from reserve funds. Nothing happens to them personally because they are indemnified. I have only sued when I really have to. Last year, I won an ADA judgment against another property where I have a disabled tenant. I wound up giving the tenant half and donated a dog park to the community under the condition the current administration resigns. My attorney is trying to figure out a way to get around her indemnity as a board member and go after her personally. Personally, HOA board members should be required to have licensure through the state, similar to realtors, and a state oversight committee. It's insane that things that need to be resolved in court with enormously expensive lawyers. You seem like a genuine good person. I hope everything goes your way. Her attacking you personally might be able to get you past the corporate shield. She is acting outside of the duties of her office as president of the association that are specifically stated by the bylaws. I mean, when you use the words "it's personal," I would think you're no longer acting as a fiduciary, at least in respect to putting OP in the ground. The HOA would have a better chance of not being sued, also for acting outside their duties as an entity if the board terminated that rogue individual off of the board, and chastised her for these activities that are clear harassment. Perhaps a cease and desist letter to the board members from the OP's attorney would have an impact on the rest of the board to take that action. You're the best person she could have attacked, because you don't want to pay out, therefore you can't be bought in the traditional sense. I do hope that you are the cause for a positive change in your community and that you can help set up an HOA, if there has to be one, where they are held accountable. Sue her, collect $5,000, donate to charity of your choice, winning. They are not indemnified if they break the rules or take actions which violate the HOA's articles. I'm a former HOA board member here. You should talk to the other board members and tell them that if they can provide evidence of her violating the rules in her course of duties, therefore removing her protection, that you will remove them as defendants and sue her personally. That'll get her thrown off and under the bus faster than anything. Also, as far as I know, selective enforcement is illegal and indemnity does absolutely not work for criminal actions. Yes, let them stew for a few days. It will only make her crumble even more, knowing from the others she done screwed up. And now you're not responding back to the board, lol? Please update when you can. Don't respond to any of them. Your attorney should do that. This is why it's very important to take your HOA elections seriously. Keep people like this off the board, they will cost you dearly. Someone was trying to start an HOA, and as soon as I learned that, I went around and asked my neighbors not to join after telling them how much power they will have over your property. It never got started, thank God. Starting one from an existing area is very, very tricky. They basically need to be made when the property is divided from the original owner. Classic example is farmer sold 30 acres that was divided into 100 parcels, and the developer put an HOA in place. And yes, you guys are truly blessed on this day, as there is an actual update. As I've said in comments, they don't really ever put updates for HOA stories, but when I do find them, I will post them. Update: HOA President did just the dumbest thing imaginable. I'm going to sum this up and give as much detail as I can. I've also been drinking since noon, so this may be a little jumbly, and I apologize in advance. My phone, Facebook, LinkedIn, all social presence, stopped getting blown up by the other board members after the attorney made it clear to them to leave me alone. It's becoming harassment. Of course, COVID-19 courts are closed. The attorney sent them letters stating what this hourly rate was, and they would be receiving a bill if it doesn't stop, and that seems to work. Last night, my attorney calls and asks if I'd be willing to hop on a Zoom call with the entire board, Karen included, and the association's attorney. My attorney came to my house and we hopped on the call together. Their lawyer started off aggressive, stating my harassment of the board would not be tolerated, etc. My guess would be to intimidate us. My attorney shared the screen with the email open and silence. We assumed Karen told the rest of the board what happened, but apparently she didn't give all the details, just that there was an email exchange, and apparently I was being aggressive. My attorney and I aren't quite sure what they were all thinking, but once they all read the email, silence, and Karen immediately hopped off the Zoom call. The VP asked if we can take a recess and call us right back, in a few minutes. 10 minutes later, the attorney gets an email with Karen's immediate resignation. We all hop back on the call, less Karen. The other 4 board members could not stop apologizing and kept asking the attorney why they were not informed of the brevity of the situation. He quickly hopped off the call. We assume he won't be representing the association anymore. And the other 4 board members said they would need to confer with the council moving forward, but they will make this right. For right now, the board told me I can leave my political signs up, but to just ignore Karen until they can figure out what to do. Unfortunately, in my something to do with homestead, your house is protected against litigation. But my attorney did draft up a demand letter to Karen personally for damages. Because the courts are closed, we can't serve her until the stay-in-place order is lifted and the courts reopen. But it was made clear Karen is to have zero contact with me, my family property, etc. We are not waiting until the remaining board hires new representation next week, and we expect some sort of settlement request. Nothing super exciting, but she was fired immediately. They are going to also start searching for a new property management next week, but I'll update when we hear something. Side note, I was walking my dog this AM, Karen was outside and walked right up to me and started petting my dog like nothing happened. I have 300 cameras in front of my house that caught the entire thing. I asked her 3 times to back away and to stop. I put him back inside. The poor guy only got a 2-minute walk. And we called the police, who made it clear to her that if they have to come out again, she will be going to jail. In short, she isn't indemnified by the HOA and is no longer on the board. This is going to cost her and the HOA major bucks. We did make it clear we don't want any of the community's money, it will only hurt the other homeowners. Karen is royally screwed. I'll post an update when I hear something else. And that was a month ago. If there is another update, I will post it. Courts may be closed for the period, but they are still open for the issuance of restraining orders and all serious criminal matters. Approach your local DA via your attorney to get the restraining order, and they will likely issue it electronically to you, and you can then have it served. Certainly, his made-up lawyers knows this, and can effectively navigate this fake inconsistent situation just fine. Karen is playing nice because she doesn't want to be the neighborhood pariah. She knows she's screwed up, and she knows word will get around the neighborhood about what she did. So she's trying to play nice so she isn't forced to move by nature of nobody wanting anything to do with her. She probably has deluded herself into believing this will all blow over. My guess is she moved away inside of 18 months. People like her can't keep the crazy bottled up permanently. Posted by user Swifty2000, titled, How My Mum Shamed the HOA into Disbanding. My mum lives in a nice, newer home community with a voluntary HOA. My mother, being the firecracker she is, refused to formally join the HOA, but agreed to do the things she would do anyway to upkeep her home. We paint for her, she has a gardener, wash windows, etc. She never signed any documents and doesn't pay fees, but told the board she would adhere to the standards she didn't find silly. The volunteer president lives next to my mother, and this guy has never liked our family. Since Mum didn't join, he would knock on the door for friendly visits to tell her what rules she was violating. It was all very silly, and we continued to ignore him. His biggest pet peeve was her trash cans. They stayed out too long after the trash pickup and said it was an eyesore for the rest of the neighborhood. Now, I have to explain a few things about Mum. Mum is a double amputee, has a dysfunctional side from stroke, is wheelchair-bound, and is still about 95% independent. There's a few things she can't do, and bringing the trash cans in and out of the side gate is one of them. For that chore, my sister or myself come over the night before trash day and put them out, and the following evening to put them back in. He bitched and complained, wrote letters, and called the city about her trash cans. This guy knew my mum is in a wheelchair, but he kept harassing her. It was after a winter storm that the trash can blew over and sprayed the neighborhood with trash overnight. It wasn't just her trash can, by the way, it was several. My sister and I walked the neighborhood and picked up the trash as soon as we could. Well, the president lost his mind. He gathered up the other members of the board next trash day and stormed up to her house. He yelled at her through the screen door while the other psychopaths nodded their heads. I happened to be there and was preparing to grab a broom and sweep the trash, yelling at my mum off our porch. But to my mother's credit, she didn't yell back. She simply opened the door and rolled her wheelchair down the drive. And then, my tiny mother struggled to pull the trash can back up the driveway with her one good arm. It was actually pretty sad. Mum hammed it up. She had adapted to her weak side, but you wouldn't know it from watching her that day. By the time she got the can halfway up the drive, the angry mob was glaring daggers at the president. I would find out later he never told them she was disabled and painted her as lazy, and most of the meetings were the president tramping about my mum and telling lies about what a nightmare it was living next to her. After a round of muttered apologies, they scattered like roaches in the light. Once they left, I moved the trash cans in and we had a good laugh. The volunteer HOA died very soon after that, and apparently no one wanted to attend meetings that were little more than glorified tramping sessions about my mum and other people in the neighborhood. The president had been harassing the other homeowners and telling similar lies about them. He was proven a liar, and we almost never see him now. I'd say the neighborhood has gotten better at this point. This guy turned out to be the cause of all the strife, and without his influence, people began to actually talk to each other. Nowadays, people stop to check by on my mum during storms, and sometimes her trash cans will magically appear in the side yard on windy days. And mum, in perfect fashion, sent out Christmas cards to all her neighbors. You may have seen this card in the stores, but it has a raccoon on it and says, "Merry Trashmas." Aw, your mum's my hero, just saying. I love your mum. I want to be her neighbor. Just be sure to bring your trash cans in if you are. Lol. In my HOA, we have containers for trash and recycle, so no cans. Although my neighbors treat their place like their own personal trash and put furniture and mattresses and construction debris, which is not allowed, into the trash container or leave it next to the container. I hope your mum saved enough of the Trashmas cards to send them to the next door neighbors for at least 10 years. Great story. I hate HOAs. Absolutely the worst way to own a home. Merry Trashmas and a tidy new year to your mum and fam. I'm sorry this BS happened at all. I've lived in several neighborhoods, and there are always neighbors who help each other with can placement and removal. It's not a big deal. Back when we had metal cans without wheels, it was not a big deal. That guy is making himself miserable. I live in a housing association, and while we have no HOA, we still have association rules, etc. Typically, neighbors here will do stuff for the older people next door since our apartments are really close to each other. My neighbor next door lives 2 doors down from her mother, so she gets her mum's can and always collected the trash from another old man in our row. Until World War III broke out, because he wouldn't move his can from out from under the neighbor's mum's vent. You know, because that's a great place for it. She asked nicely, but was yelled at, then my neighbor gave him hell for telling her mother off. This same guy stole my grandfather's handicap parking sign that he paid for, unbeknownst to me. I'd have never known if he shut his trap and allowed my mother-in-law to use it. I thought it was a regular handicap spot there, and nope, he straight up moved it for himself and tried preventing anyone else. There's a lot of handicapped people around here from using it. We have monthly meetings. These meetings usually consist of bitching of some sort. I'll never understand how someone doesn't actively see someone lying about a disabled person no less, and not fudging lose it. If someone had me angry enough about something to go to their house as a group, and your mum even opened the door, I wouldn't be able to contain my pissed off. HOA is fining me for something beyond my control. A few weeks ago, we got a pitiful little snow that was barely really a frost. Just enough to cause a little trouble on the roads, because any sort of weather causes trouble on the roads here, but nothing severe. So my husband and I go out, get in our cars, and leave for the workday. A while later, I don't remember if it was 5 days or a week, we get an email from the HOA saying that we are being fined for something. They aren't very specific at first, but they are saying that it's about the snow and our cars. We are very confused. There's not enough snow to shovel, as you will soon see. Finally, after a few days of back and forth emails, they simply send us a picture describing the problem. Yo. Picture with license plates blurred. Hey, is that a snow angel in your pocket or you just happen to see me? The imprint our car left in this pitiful ass snow was the shape of a dick, and somehow that's our fault. I died laughing, y'all. This is the most ridiculous thing I have ever been fined for, and we flat out told them that we weren't paying. Eventually, they realized we were serious about not paying, and since there were no bylaws in the books about something like this, they dropped it. Also, like crazy, The ex-HOA president has still been plying her trade of making my life miserable, but that's a complete post for another time. I had to look really hard to see a dick. Yeah, the fact it's not in your face and readily apparent makes it even stupider in my opinion. It looks like a fire hydrant more than anything. I was thinking a gummy bear. Yeah, this is beyond stupid. Whoever reported this needs to get a life or some help for their hallucinations. You should tell them to get their minds out of the gutter and stop being inappropriate. More of a plug, the size of which appears to be up their ass. That was a good one. Yeah, you gotta be looking really hard and thinking about a dick to see it there. HOA Karen may just need to get laid. Well, now you need to go out there next snowfall and make proper dicks in every empty parking space to make sure they know what one looks like. Wear a Chewbacca outfit and blame the Yeti. A careful sprinkling of ice melter in the correct shape will produce the right results, ideally on the HOA President's drive. Even better if you do it before the snow when no one will notice. Yes, the salt residue will last for ages, perpetuating the penis. Imagine seeing that one out of context. And in regards to this part of the story, do they normally try to fine for things that aren't in the bylaws? What the hell is the thinking behind that, other than trying to invite a lawsuit against the HOA? Petty people with power. Petty people with power and nothing better to do. If someone is seriously bothered by this, I'd suggest they get checked for mental illness or substance addiction. This is not something that a sober, rational person would be raising a public fuss about. There is no universal cause for an individual who simply wants to make the lives of everyone around them worse. Oof, don't hurt me like that, buddy. Not sure what state you're in, insanity, but usually a warning and time period to cure the violation is required before being given a fine. I'm guessing someone complained about it and that's why you were sent a violation for something out of the bylaws, and why it was closed without much argument. Request a hearing with the board of directors to contest the violation and fine if the issue continues. Okay, I'm going to read this last one because it's just a good comment. I keep seeing a lot of this in these threads, but if she's using the HOA to harass you, sue her for harassment. If you can prove selective enforcement, you can sue her and the HOA. What you have to do is tell everyone she's harassing you and that their dues are going up, / the HOA bank account is going down because they have to hire an attorney to defend the HOA from her personal vendetta. Then every single bloody time you get a sideways glance from her, a notice, whatever, you give it to your attorney contacts them and it costs the HOA. If you're really lucky and you live in a place and the cops are bored, you might get them to go for criminal harassment. It's usually a wide statute, but if there's a pattern of emotional distress that's going on, by law, that's criminal harassment. God, that's amazing. I love that idea. Posted by user RichFun55, titled, "All I asked was proof of insurance before allowing work to be done in my property. So, I am in an long-running dispute with my HOA because they refuse to follow the CC&Rs and bylaws. Anyway, they decided to take down some trees on HOA property behind the houses on our street, and wanted to access the trees by coming across my property, and I refused until I had proof of insurance from the contractor. The HOA said that the contractor gave them a certificate of insurance, and they provided one from the HOA to me. Problem is that the tree removal company provided a COI that stated information only in the certificate holder box, which means that maybe they have insurance, but if something happens on someone's property, that they are not liable. Neat little trick, and the HOA idiots fell for it. I still refused work until I have a valid COI naming me as the certificate holder from the tree company. Ooh, r/tree law. So the HOA president comes onto my driveway and starts to argue with me, and I told him to leave my property. He refused, stating that he has a right to be on my property any time that he wants to. Told him to leave again, that he is trespassing, and he again refuses, and says I should call the state police. He finally leaves, and I call the SP. They went to see him and let him know that the CC&Rs plus bylaws do not supersede state and federal protections for private property protection. Told that son of a bear that if I call them again, he will be arrested and taken to jail. Idiots! Time for a restraining order. Yeah, what the hell? I would file for a restraining order and harassment charges. How on earth does he think him being on the neighborhood HOA gives him the right to trespass? That man's got a right to catch these hands. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, but sometimes extremely limited power corrupts too. Red Loves Peaches says, I work with HOAs for my job and have read thousands of pages of CC&Rs, and you'd be surprised by how many HOAs have this clause hidden in there. They love adding this clause in and people sign it like it's nothing. Step in my house, you're getting shot if you made it past my pit. Pit bull, or are you digging punji traps all over your yard? Yes, the only correct answer. How much does that cost? Lawyer? Filing fees? What else? It's a Long Shot 2020 says, as an insurance professional, good on you for asking for a cert. For many people, that doesn't even cross their mind. You only have to get burnt once to never make that mistake again. My next door neighbor wants to use our driveway to trim her trees and freaked out on me when I asked for proof of insurance. Needless to say, the trees are still there. What does a COI provide a homeowner? To put it plainly, it serves as proof that the tree trimmer has insurance to cover his actions while performing his work and prevents the injured party from going after the homeowner's insurance policy on a primary basis. Should be standard practice for any contractor to provide certs. My parents had a guy put a pool in this past summer and they didn't even have to ask for one, he just provided it. And OP says, I typically ask new clients for their insurance minimums and provide certs as a part of accepting their business. I always want to be on the up and up with my clients and want them to know that our company is fully insured and bonded. Just good business practice. OP also says, next move, F him. Go to your city hall or county office and get an injunction against him. If the person tries to contact you in any way, direct or third party, they are in violation of the injunction, and it is a trespassing order that extends to all communications. Edit, make sure you look it up first that there's a deadline in the morning to have the paperwork turned in by. You have to stay there until the decision is made, or it is dismissed. Theoretically, could you do that to everyone involved in the HOA and effectively be done with their nonsense forever? The court won't grant an injunction without reason. Make sure you have cameras around your house to show if someone comes on your property. A million times this. Don't put it past them to try and sneak onto your property to do the job when you aren't home. I would like to further reiterate this. Wireless cameras can be used with smart home devices and your phone are super cheap on Amazon. And they work great. Invest in this right away. Good luck getting HOA permission to install them. You can easily set up cameras inside looking out windows without permission. Some HOAs even have rules about what's visible from the outside. It can be crazy. Posted by user LNX64, titled, HOA Vandalizes Father's Truck, Gets Immediate Justice. I originally posted this on r/malicious compliance, but they removed it for some reason. As far as I know, it didn't violate any rules. Please note, I'm not complaining about the HOA, and this is merely a story of what happened to my father and I when I was living there. I'll paste it below. This happened a few years back. Our HOA has always been known to be sneaky and to flat out give false accusations on homeowners, especially in this day with security cameras, and we can pretty easily spot out who the investigators are. Most recently, a homeowner was told that she was supposed to get approval before she started re-shingling her roof. The thing is, her roof hasn't been re-shingled in 10 years, and she had no plans to do it. Things like that. Call it just a mistake, call it malicious. Well, a few years ago, we had our time to shine. It was a simple morning. I was still temporarily living with my father at the time. Well, one morning, we decided to go out to get groceries, when we found that his pickup truck had been smashed into. Nothing was taken, it was just smashed into. In fact, I still have pictures from that day, just before the cops arrived. Oh, that, looks a bit intentional there, what the? They really did a number on this thing. Look, even the rear view mirror, smashed, it's like shot, there's like a gunshot in there, god damn. Cops arrive, they do some investigating, and found that a rock inside the truck was from a house down the street. Unfortunately, they couldn't get them to admit to the crime, nor could they prove it was even them. Understandable. Criminals will grab things that they find, but it was suspicious. The rock, I should say, was a special kind of rock that no one else in the neighborhood had. Some round polished type. Very unique. After this incident, I installed a security camera on his house. Well, not 2 days later, we got an HOA violation for a vehicle eyesore that needs to be removed. Just 2 days later, I'm confused how such a letter could be written up so fast. But I started to suspect foul play. One day we were home and had a knock at the door. The HOA actually called a code inspection officer. The week hadn't even been over yet, so the parts to fix the truck weren't delivered yet, and we weren't paying expedited shipping for damages we didn't cause, and the truck was so old, insurance would probably just total it. The truck is sentimental to him, so he wasn't going to get rid of it. It still ran great. Code inspection tells my father that vehicles which do not run need to be removed. They both stop talking and take a second, and both almost say at the same time, "Do I know you?" Turns out the code inspection officer went to the same church as my father and knew each other. This isn't the malicious compliance yet. We are only just beginning. The officer tells my father if he can show the truck starts, he's going to write it up as being in code. My father starts the truck just fine as the engine isn't damaged. He tells him to go on with his day and to have a good one. At this point, we are furious, because we are starting to suspect the HOA may have did this, as there's no way they could have possibly known so fast. Unfortunately, our turn of the street had no neighbors with security cameras until I installed one at our house, so it caught nothing specific to our incident. Down the street, these people supposedly broke into a car as well, but the camera on their house was unable to see anything. Damn. Here's where the fun begins. Fast forward a couple of months after nothing happened. I decided to install a new dash cam in my car. I found a good one that uses very little power off the battery and can activate if there's any bumps to the car, even if the car is off. It just needs to be wired straight to the battery for this. It's a thinkware. A few days later, we got a violation notice for our mailbox being crooked. It wasn't crooked much, but I do remember it recently having an angle. Odd. I could just fix it, but my car was aiming straight at the mailbox. I'm thinking, no, this couldn't be possible. It only records if there's a bump. I take out the memory card, and apparently I either didn't configure it properly, but it was recording the whole time. It never went into sleep mode. I watched as the investigator walks up to the mailbox and pushes it crooked, then writes down on his tablet his findings and takes a picture for records. I'm appalled at what I see. I have the proof I needed. Now for the malicious compliance. They wanted to use the board meetings to present what is going on at our address. We haven't told them yet that we had the pictures, but to summarize real fast how our HOA works, the board hires an outside company to do the grunt work. Let's call it Bench Management. We go to the meeting and sit down. Bench Management has the one in control of our account, and I swear to you she looked like a Karen. So the name fits for her. As time goes by in the meeting, we get to discuss what is happening at our house. We present the timelines and tell them about the truck being smashed, and just 2 days later we get a letter. We ask what dates the investigator was out for that time, and Karen refuses to answer it. She argues ignorantly that we should keep better care of our stuff, as if it was our fault. Then comes the mailbox incident. We tell her that we have reasons to believe that the investigator is the one causing damages to our property and is harassing us. Karen denies this and says that it is impossible and that she knows him personally. "Oh, is that so?" I ask. She says, "Yes. Why?" I then pull out my laptop out of my book bag that I had been hiding, open it up with the video file already loaded, and show it to the entire board. "Enter Exhibit A," I said loudly, and played the video. Karen's face is bright red. She says that is not her investigator. I then also pulled out the letter about the mailbox, which was complete with date. It matches the cooked on timestamp on the video. She still tries to claim it's not them. No, it's a coincidence. I'm sorry, but you have a vandal and it's not us. It's not? I let the video play, knowing she's falling into a pit hard right now. As the man walks towards my car, you can clearly see, plain as day, Bentry Management on his shirt. She's no longer red now, she's white as a ghost. The board looks over at her and asks her what she has to say about this. Karen is silent and has nothing except a few noises, which I assume was her brain trying to comprehend what just happened. I then proceed to bring up a previous case which I happened to remember before we left for the meeting, where we had a grass violation beside our house. Now, this area they were claiming was actually not visible from the sidewalk due to the house's shape. I asked point blank, has at any time your investigators walked onto our property illegally trespassing, knowing as per their rules they aren't allowed to do that? Karen is visibly shaking now and mutters out, "No, of course not," with her head down, unable to maintain eye contact with me. She probably feels that I have more evidence, but unfortunately I didn't, so I ask again. She asks, why? Our neighbors, whom are lawyers, literally next door to us where the side of this wall was, stands up and says, "Actually, that's not true. I have witnessed one of your investigators go between our house and poke around the trash bins." Bingo! I didn't even realize she had this information. I couldn't have asked for more better timing. Karen at this point just starts arguing with our neighbors about no proof. The board proceeds to apologize for the incident, and they were going to discuss what is going to happen in the future about this. At that point, the meeting is over. A month passes, and we get a letter that a new person will be in charge for Bentry Management and new investigators. She was fired that night. Since she was fired, my father tells me we only get the occasional blip of errors, but they correct it immediately and don't bother us anymore. R/Pro Revenge might like this one too. They hate HOAs as well. I actually posted it there as well, so far so good. I just can't stand HOAs, but I know that some good ones exist. I live in a new house with no HOA, my grandparents' old home just after the estate sale. So I'm glad to have been able to get out of that toxic area, though as my father reports, all has been good since I got justice. But I know some good ones exist. That is where you're entirely wrong. You know what? I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I say all HOAs suck, and I'm bashed for it. I say some good ones exist, and I'm bashed for it. I try and play devil's advocate just to be fair. I'm entirely wrong. You are still wrong. Pulling out my bashing stick. I think I heard someone say it's the 99.99% that are bad, ruin it for the 0.01% that are good. But doesn't that seem extremely generous? Seriously, you think 1 in 10,000 is good? I have a friend in an HOA, and he always says, but they are actually really good. All we do is pay for the clubhouse upkeep. But when I pressured him, he admitted that people get in trouble for inviting too many people to a party, and he once got in trouble because his barbecue was too close to a tree. My boss also thinks HOAs are good, but he doesn't live in one. He just argues with me when I am bashing HOA defenders. Correct me if I'm wrong, but tampering with a mailbox in any way is a federal crime. Should have also contacted your local postal inspector. It put a stop to my HOA from going through my mail real bloody quick. That's also a good point. I honestly didn't even think of it. I believe it is. Tampering with mail, including opening the box without authorization, is a federal crime. Ever wonder why UPS and FedEx bring the box to your door? They aren't federal employees, therefore they really aren't legally allowed to leave it in the mailbox, even if it's small enough. I'm not so sure that's the reason. FedEx actually transports and handles USPS postage regularly. You're right, they do, but USPS has a contract with FedEx to use their airplanes during the daytime to transport airmail. Most first class, stamped and small packages, and priority mail is shipped via air. That doesn't affect the policy of only USPS using a mailbox. These HOAs are run by crooks, the management companies and law firms that back them up. I always loved the weed problem we supposedly had as well. Throw back to that weed aside story. I used to use my phone as a dashcam previously and would just pull up videos from the previous day of the inspection. I think what was going on is they were trying to get us for something they kept getting fought back with evidence. Perhaps they thought the dashcam only ran when the car was on, and technically thinkware should. I believe I had to adjust the settings for the battery voltage in the end for it to properly sleep when the car was off, and I didn't do that, so it kept rolling when off. I got so lucky that day, and the neighbor being there was the icing on the cake. He apparently found a way to get our entire street off the HOA, because technically, while we were part of this development, we weren't getting any benefits at all. Like, for example, we're supposed to have a sign with lights at the entrance, and for the past 15 years, it's been gone. I don't think it went anywhere though. Blamzer says, it is typical for the HOA to require approval for a new roof or most other permanent exterior changes to the home. If your father owns a home in an HOA, they should read over the paperwork to understand how that works. The HOA property manager, not a neighbor that doesn't like you, but someone the HOA hired, smashed your dad's truck with a rock, then they were fired but not arrested? Wow. We know this. She wasn't getting a new roof done though. Hard to request the roof to be done when you weren't even doing your own roof. Edits, screenshot of discussion with this neighbor. They never even showed up and swept it under the rug. Yeah, my email to them was somewhat funny in the beginning and serious in the end. Well, that might help break the ice with them. Hopefully they realize it's an error. I did, however, demand an apology for this violation being sent in writing. They might not do it. They never did when we tried. We had to go to a meeting with proof and demand the apology in person, and it got pretty nasty, but that was someone else in charge of Sentry. And it gets better. I will be on site today and will take a look at your home personally. I will be happy to close and delete the violation if there is no evidence. On site is an interesting choice of words. All they gotta do is look at the house and visually see that the roof was recently done or not. But how could they have mistaken it for you actually doing it, versus no living soul being on the roof working, etc.? That's fairly comical. Gotta laugh at that one, yeah? It's a big moment right there. And last comment by the pianist of doom. My biggest question is, why? What do these people gain from doing that stuff? My guess, since this was the management company, is that they collect a fee from the HOA per violation that they report. I wouldn't be surprised if the management company also has a bonus structure based on how many violations an inspector issues. This is pure speculation, but it wouldn't surprise me based on the behavior. Thanks for explaining thoroughly. In that case, OP should report them to the police as well, as they're trying to steal from him with fraud? Sounds like it to me. Just kidding, there's one little last story at the end by Spaghetti Tramp. As someone who works for an HOA management company, I personally do my community's inspections, and I hate every single second of it. I literally don't get out of my car, and I would never step foot on someone's lawn, let alone touch their personal property. It infuriated me that she would do that. As far as inspections go, I do the bare minimum. I am not writing anyone up unless it's a bluntly obvious write-up. And I usually look the other way at least 2 times before I write up anything. Dead grass / bare spots, for example. The board gets copies of all letters sent and I get paid to do the inspections, so I have to at least write some people up though. Trash cans are an easy write-up, I favor those. Anyway, I just found this subreddit and I'm obsessed. I know this is long and no one will probably see it, but I don't know, I enjoyed reading this. I love this story, tell it loud and proud, to hell with HOAs. My HOA fee is brutally high, while the HOA itself barely does anything. So I get my money's worth by sending the board members passive-aggressive letters monthly about things they've royally screwed up. Here are my favorites. Hi guys, why is there an $11.66 convenience fee for processing HOA payments online? This is indeed 2017, yes. Fandango has been around for 17 years, and their convenience fee is $1.50. It costs me an extra $139.92 per year to submit HOA payments electronically. That is 21 Chipotle burritos. 21. You clearly prefer me to mail you paper. Can you hear that sound? It's the environment screaming. This one's titled, Neighbor has decided to gift me his shitty useless furniture. Hi guys, I live in unit number A306. My neighbor has recently decided to move and put the unit up for sale. The night he moved out, he left an enormous, shitty, old Walmart TV stand with packing tape holding the corners together on the landing, and he left a note on my door which reads, Scott, I have a TV stand. Yours if you want it. The guy who wanted it on Craigslist did not show up. Not only do I have a very nice and trendy TV stand I paid a lot of money for, but I have no use for this colossal piece of trash that has been involuntarily bequeathed me. I know the days of breaking kneecaps are past, but is there a course of action which would result in this moron realizing that he can't just dump his trash on other people with no consequence? Thanks and happy Father's Day, a sentiment I do not wish upon my former neighbor. In fact, I hope his children forget what day it is, or at the very least, that he is sterile and wholly unable to experience the joys of being a father in the first place. Please see attached my picture of my new front patio furniture. Best wishes, Scott. Titled, Your Website. Hi Ben. In a perfect world, I could simply log onto your website and pay my required dowry on this, the first of the month. Alas, your servers seem to be latently affected by the Y2K bug 17 years post-mortem. Attached is a screenshot of your web developer's failures. Please let me know when this is rectified so I can continue to pay for my 3-hour electricity shut-off notices while my fish are being slowly and agonizingly gassed while I am at work. Happy New Year! A few quick questions regarding home improvements. Hi Ben. I've been undergoing a few small home improvement projects, and I was curious if I'm allowed to access the crawl space above my unit, top floor in Brio. I have access to the space via the cutout in my bedroom. I assume this is a common area, and such any improvements involving it would have to undergo a permit application. I'd like to install can lights throughout the unit. Just want to lay the groundwork so this is smooth. What would I need to do to be able to do that? Also, unrelated, that TV stand I was bitching about a few weeks ago is still there. Would you happen to have the number of the previous tenant I could contact to ask him about it? I understand you said the home sale is part of an estate sale, and as such, I don't really want to piss someone off in what I can assume is a trying time, but their tenant is a dick and needs to come pick up his useless furniture. Thanks in advance. Speak soon. Hi Ben. I do fear that the cordial manner and far more polite than usual tone of my previous email may have led you to believe that I'm not looking for a punctual response. However, I do want to assure you that it is certainly not the case. The more I am forced to wait for a simple yes and here's the number response to my email, the more I become disillusioned entirely with the idea of once again waiting 4 weeks for permission to modify the condo I dumped my life savings into. And the more inclined I become to simply start tearing holes in the ceiling to put aforementioned can lights in place. You remember the hardwood flooring permit request that took 4 weeks to respond to? I remember. Good times. Scott. No, that's fine. I'll copy my concerns here, and you can feel free to pass this along to whomever you feel is necessary. Over the past few weeks, someone has been taping printed 8.5 by 11-inch flyers to the landings of all the buildings, invariably and passive-aggressively addressing trivial matters to the vindictiveness that only being an out-of-work hairdresser with no other pressing concerns and freshly elected to the HOA board will provide. Therefore, I imagine the list of potential culprits by proxy is rather short. Admittedly, I found it to be a tremendous waste of time and trees when the board elected to send every member of the HOA a packet of papers detailing that there were exactly 2 vacant spots on the board with exactly 2 candidates running for it. However, I do respect the beauty of the democratic process and begrudgingly accept the fact that a vote is required to complete this process, however stupid it may seem. However, subsequently having a passive-aggressive note taped to the banister of the stairwell landing saying something to the effect of, "We cannot proceed with electing Dick and Daryl to the board until a simple majority of the HOA has cast a vote. So, submit your ballots now," really spilled some sand in my Cheerios. Not only does this undermine the core values of a democratic system by neglecting to consider that maybe I wasn't happy with Dick nor Daryl to begin with, as well as neglecting potential protest votes by virtue of abstention, it was also ugly. I took the liberty of removing the note as soon as it was posted. Thereafter, on July 4th, a note was put up that reminded all residents of the ostensibly groundbreaking news that fireworks were in fact not allowed to be shut off in a communal private residence. The efficacy of this note was also immediately demonstrated by the considerable firework litter across the parking lot the next morning, and I'm really glad to see that this was so effective to preventing morons from launching off fireworks. Finally, the following note was posted this morning, and I am copying this verbatim. Please break down boxes and put all garbage and recycling in containers. The recycling company will not pick up anything unless it is inside one of the blue recycling bins. Fines will be enforced if someone is caught dumping items next to or behind the containers. Please help keep this property clean. Thank you, Brio Management. Disregarding the capitalization graveyard and the palpable irony behind please help keep this property clean, paired with the act of plastering a bunch of crap on every single stairwell notwithstanding, I do want to remark that the last time I saw a note of this caliber posted in any sort of public forum was my freshman year of college, when I lived in a building where stealing ramen and sandals was common. That time in my life was memorable, but now I'm an adult with things like a mortgage and eczema, and my friends now get excited over things like which mattress they've decided to purchase. By extension, I no longer think these passive-aggressive notes are effective forms of communication between productive adults. The stairwell is not a bulletin board. I have a very nice mailbox made of brass that I check semi-frequently that board members are welcome to drop notes in as you please. I also have a nice functioning email address, as you can see. I have contacted your office a few times to try and get a hold of the board members responsible for these notes. However, you do not release this information to residents, which is wholly understandable. However, until I am able to hold a two-way conversation with this person to ascertain their intentions, I will continue to remove every single note that gets posted up and throw it immediately into the garbage. It makes a very handsome community look like trash. Is this an overreaction? Probably. I wake up at 4:45 a.m. to start work by 7 a.m. and I get home at 10 p.m. most nights. So I'm usually not in the mood to deal with this tripe when I finally get home. Thank you in advance for forwarding this to whomever is responsible, and feel free to direct any further response on this directly to me if you'd like. I'm happy to open a dialogue. I'm in Unit A306. My cell number is listed below. Best, Scott. Quick question. I was not at the most recent HOA meeting. May I inquire as to why the monthly HOA payment has increased from $248 to $295? Hi guys, forwarding just in case you didn't see this. Ben, Cassandra, I sent my original inquiry as to the reason for the HOA dues increase on December 26th. It has now been 22 days with no response. I have tried taking the high road on this one, seeing as there is probably a legitimate, publicly voted upon, and utterly reasonable answer, and really I just want to be informed as to why it's going up. Admittedly, I do take some small modicum of pleasure in writing extended emails to you, as you're no doubt aware. But it does disappoint me to know that the only way I can adequately capture your attention enough to merit a response is to write some long-winded, vaguely asshole-ish email in the hopes that I'll raise your blood pressure enough to goad you into hitting the reply button. It is tiresome for me and annoying for you, but here we are, so buckle up. In fairness to you, and in an attempt to not deliberately waste your time, I did attempt to find the record of the HOA notes on the community website. However, there are startlingly few buttons on the site, over 80% of which include literally every single Services and Amenities button, default to a page that reads Error 503, the service is unavailable, which I find to be both ironic and oddly fitting. And one promising bit on the Frequently Asked Questions page, which reads, Records and reports of the association are available to the members based on law established under your state. For specific information on what is available to you as a member, please contact the management company. As that was a dead end, again, here we are. There are many reasons I can think of as to why the HOA payment has increased. The first that comes to mind is the expectation that the landscaping budget was appropriately underfunded last year, as was proved to me and the neighbors when the gardening company would arrive every other week to terrorize the neighborhood with gas-powered plant trimming tools at shockingly early hours of the morning. As my desk is in the upper and furthermost corner of the unit, I had a front row seat to watch the gentleman running the lawnmower take it upon himself to mow the dry dirt between the A-block. I use the term mow loosely. It is more accurate to say that he shot pine cones at high velocity at the wood siding of the building while running the mower over a patch of plant life that I hesitate to refer to as anything besides kindling. Doubly compounding this were the results of the yearly tree trim, after which the clippings and trimmed branches remained on the ground for 10 days before a crew came and removed them. The second reason that came to my mind while I was brainstorming ideas as to why the HOA payment has increased was for security increases. But that can't be true, since my car was broken into for the second time in as many months and smelled like hobo stank when I came to drive to work in the morning. I am happy to report that I no longer keep anything of value in my car, a lesson I learned the hard way back in August, when the lack of any appreciable security presence in the complex caused me to lose a pair of nice sunglasses and a Five Guys gift card, with around $40 on it. To your credit, there was once a security guard driving around in an SUV for a few nights who accused me of walking around weirdly, and then chastised me for not reporting the break-in immediately. As if Highway 99 adjacent condo complex wasn't reason enough to bolster security in and of itself. I appreciated his condescension though. I mentioned in a previous email that I calculate nearly everything in my life in terms of how many times I can go to Chipotle with the money saved, or how many times I am being restricted from visiting Chipotle with the money lost. In this particular case, the difference is $564. And that is an astounding amount of Chipotle. When I was an undergrad, I bought an entire orchestra Chipotle for one of my thesis rehearsals, and it didn't even cost me that much. And that included chips and salsa and guacamole. Do you understand the gravity of that? For the amount the HOA payment has gone up over the year, I could cater Chipotle for a group of no less than 70 people. All of this to say that, again, I am in tractable forbearance of this situation, provided there's a reason attached to it. As I stated in the original email December 26th, and the forwarded follow-up nearly 2 weeks later on January 11th, I just want to know why the HOA payment has increased by nearly 20%. I was not present at the yearly HOA meeting, and I refused to ask my neighbor on next door, as I am not willing to involve myself in neighborly crises, such as, "There was a strange Camry parked on the street for more than 4 hours today. Should I call the police?" In conclusion, I would accept even the simplest, most dismissive responses such as, "The HOA payment has increased by 18.5% due to insert reason here." A single sentence would placate me. I hope it's not asking too much. Thank you for your undoubtedly precious time. Scott. I won't lie, I really enjoyed reading that. There are some backstories. I will be happy to elaborate if you'd like. Cheers. Background. The original thread was deleted because the original screenshots contained my email address. Though I appealed this, it was submitted to the Reddit moderators who, hilariously, banned me for 7 days for posting personal information. The information in question being my email address, in screenshots which I took of my own email, which could never be traced back to my Reddit username, which is actually a clever alias I have concocted by using a random name generator, a name which does not actually exist in real life. The absolute irony of this turn of events taking place from a post I made on a subreddit dedicated to making fun of and ranting about the ridiculous rules that HOAs try to enact is not lost on me. Anyway, enjoy. Moderator reckons, "Hey, it wasn't us who banned you. I tried to ask the admins, who completely misunderstood what I was trying to do and basically covered up what they did as a response. Sorry." Interesting faces in reply to that. I'm interested in hearing some of any of their replies to your lovely emails. Unfortunately, their replies are all very G-rated, as I think they're very much aware of how little of a leg they have to stand on. Most of the replies are fairly standard, but I take joy in passing through whatever little digs they can reasonably get in their responses. Scott, as per our previous email, and then just replying with some 8-paragraph novel detailing exactly how screwed up they've made life for all the residents of the condos. I did once get into a fantastic argument regarding a Surface laptop I bought on Amazon a while ago, and I managed to pee off the sales rep something fierce. I will see if I can dig that one up if there's any interest. Not to be a tease, I'm going to cover that one again next episode. It is another saga. It is hilarious. How high is your HOA? When I moved in, it was $250 a month. It then increased to $295 a month after the first year, and has now increased subsequently to $352 a month, an increase of nearly 20% per year, which perfectly tracks with the concordant increase of fudging nothing, except for the ineptitude of the board. Sounds like embezzlement. Contact a lawyer? Lawyers are good at mailing paper. This is the actual... sorry about that, the devil just came out of me. This is the actual story for why it's that insane, which I typed out in the previous thread. The HOA fee increased by 20% per year over the last 3 years because when the HOA originally hired someone in the early 2000s to do repairs for all the unit balconies, the company took the money, repaired 6 balconies, and then promptly ghosted. Subsequently, these balconies were found during an inspection of the property to be wholly unsafe to even stand on, apparently, despite the fact that they've been bearing weight since 1979 with no issues whatsoever. I am not a contractor, and as such can't comment on the structural soundness of the balconies, but I don't doubt the efficacy of an inspector with a friend in construction looking for a quick job. So the HOA paid $40,000 for a contracting company to come in and tell the community how much repairs to all of the balconies would subsequently cost. The total of these repairs for the entire community came out to just over $2 million. Keep in mind, we haven't actually moved forward with these repairs yet. The $40K was literally just the cost of the inspection and quote. When this was brought up at the yearly HOA meeting, which is the only meeting I attend, they informed every resident that not only had they not gotten any of this in writing, but they hadn't actually gotten any information or breakdown whatsoever for what the entire quote would entail, except for what essentially amounts to a contractor handing them a fudging post-it note saying it'll cost $2 million. To account for this cost over the course of 2 years, which was the deadline for the repairs, they started aggressively raising the HOA dues. People went fudging ballistic in the HOA meeting. I had spent the prior almost 15 hours standing in the hospital where I do rotations, so I was already in a horrible mood. So I went on a 15-minute in-person rant, still standing in my dirty scrubs, about the sheer scale of irresponsibility of handing a fudging contracting company $40,000 to tell you it would cost you another $2 million to do repairs. We also found out that, as an inspection like this is reportable to the real estate board, several people who had their units listed for sale had their buyers informed of the potential $2 million special assessment coming within the 1 to 2 years, and the buyers backed out. Then, we found out, via word of mouth from one of the board members, that this assessment also included preemptively replacing the roof while they were at it when the roof was already replaced 3 years ago. So the contractor was padding the bill and hoping the community would blindly accept and just toss them a huge payday before they'd probably ghost the community too. Oh, and we have a tanning bed that cost $25,000. I am currently drafting up a multi-paragraph, sarcastic email detailing just how shockingly important it is to keep that maintained in fudging Seattle, Washington, and insisting that we never, ever sell that to try and recoup some of the money we lost by launching $40,000 via trebuchet at the first contracting company to insist that they'd never ever take advantage of a condo complex run by clueless frickwits. I knew this was Bria Linwood. Blech. There's no fudging where you live here too. No, I live in an equally tepid apartment complex on the east side, to be fair. but I work in the multi-family housing industry, and in particular, I sell my services to HOAs. More specifically, I sell water heaters, so oldish complexes are my best candidates. Kind of like the guys who sold your board the seismic retrofits, I've solicited your community before and had every bit as much luck reaching your board as you appear to. Yo, what's the water heater company name? It's not Fast Water Heaters, is it? The Water Heater Experts. So I guess take from that what you will. I'm going through a similar thing with my co-op board. I moved in a year ago, and since then there have been non-stop major emergencies. Units flooding, the entire heating system going out in December in all 3 buildings, the roof failing, and code violations aplenty. Our management company fired us for some mysterious, undisclosed reasons, and half the board resigned after we moved in. It turns out that for the last 40 years, we'd been getting nothing in writing from the contractors, HOA dues had barely budged, I'm talking about $5 per year increases. Major plumbing/heating issues had literally been repaired with glue and paper towels, and we had just been siphoning money from our emergency reserve to pay for outrageously expensive emergency fixes. I'd say the property is 80% retirees who inherited their units from their parents. It's a weird place, so the budget solution now is to just raise the dues in increasing percentages every year because they're planning on dying here, and screw everybody who has a mortgage and might want to actually sell in 15 years. All the young people want to do special assessments and to get it over with. But since we all have jobs and can't devote 1,000,000 hours a week to endless board meetings, we have zero power. Boomers strike again, I guess. Your co-op is almost a micro version of the United States being led by the boomers. Reading back over my comments, holy crap, it's almost a perfect representation, down to the boomers inheriting it from their parents back when everything was spiffy and financially solvent. Now I'm extra riled up for the board meeting tonight. Roast them good. They deserve it for running this HOA like they're 13 and mad at dad for making them take out the trash. Someone else says to that huge story, I'm a strata, Canadian HOA President. We just had a moving truck hit one of our balconies. Total repair cost was $2,000, which was basically a gut and redo. Our condo fees are $350 to $390 a month. We run a 10% surplus on a $100,000 budget that goes into reserve. Critically, I give out my email. Does giving out your email help with transparency? Sorry, I missed the meaning behind why that helps. People can actually contact me with issues and I'll help them. I'm not here to be a bad guy. I'm here to protect everyone's investment. That is the beginning and end of the job. I literally don't give a flying frick about anything else. I rarely tow cars, issue noise violations, anything of that sort, because I usually just go and talk with them and take care of it. My god, a sensible HOA member? Never thought I'd see the day. And in response to the OP, yeah, I get it asks, I don't know crap about owning a home. What would happen if you just chose to not pay the fees? Bad things. You are, unfortunately, legally obligated to pay your HOA dues. It's part of an extensive contract you sign when purchasing. Does the other member of the HOA are okay with it? Maybe you could dissolve this idiocy with enough members. I've heard that there are some HOAs with bylaws that forbid dissolving the HOA without another HOA absorbing the neighborhood. So that would be a disaster. The key is to probably get a board in, change the bylaw about dissolving the board, then dissolve the board. It is also possible that clause is unenforceable. So here's someone arguing with OP. $350 for a monthly is reasonable for most any building. I see far higher where I live, and it's way less expensive here. It would be shockingly reasonable if the HOA responded diligently to concerns and otherwise did their basic duties. However, I dislike wadding up my money and throwing it down a hole and getting nothing but fart noises in return. And the last comments before I wrap this up, for part 2 to be released tomorrow. Jesus, what does your HOA even cover at that price? Mostly gardening, but not really, because it's Seattle, and landscaping upkeep is only realistically a thing for like 5 to 6 months out of the year. The gardeners did continue to show up one winter and mow the non-growing grass in November and December, if I recall correctly, which essentially amounted to running a gas mower over a dirt patch and then collecting a paycheck until I wrote an email about it, something to the effect of, If I wanted to listen to the din the gardeners made every Saturday at 5:30 a.m. when I get the only reasonable amount of sleep I'm able to achieve in the work week, I would have walked outside and thrown pine cones at my own fudging window, or something to that effect. You should cite a local ordinance for reasonable noise levels at that point. I used to get woken up every Wednesday after working overnights and just falling asleep because the management company that ran my apartment complex was run by someone who was clearly not an early adopter of this newfangled phone thing. I was also not able to speak to her in person, even though she almost lost me the house that I was buying because responding to phone calls and emails in any span of time shorter than weeks is too hard. Her name was Susan, and my contempt for her is unmatched in intensity. I'm interested in hearing some of any of their replies to your lovely emails. Unfortunately, their replies are all very G-rated, as I think they're very much aware of how little of a leg they have to stand on. Most of the replies are fairly standard, but I take joy in passing through whatever little digs they can reasonably get in their responses. Scott, as per our previous email, and then just replying with some 8-paragraph novel detailing exactly how screwed up they've made life for all the residents in the condos. I did once get into a fantastic argument regarding a Surface laptop I bought on Amazon a while ago, and I managed to pee off the sales rep something fierce. I will see if I can dig that one up if there's any interest. Edit. Unfortunately, I was not able to find the entire laptop saga. I could only find snippets of it. Essentially what happened, I ordered a Surface off of Amazon. It cost $921.42. Then, as soon as I ordered the laptop, it dropped in price from the price I paid to $879.99 from the same distributor. And I thought that was some shady bullcrap, so I emailed them and basically said, please refund me the difference of your Ponzi scheme. And their response was, the only way we'll sell it to you at a lower price is if you return the laptop, then purchase it again at the lower price. Then we'll ship you out a new one. So these were my responses to that. Hi Daniel, the laptop arrived today. Are we actually truthfully going to go through with this? Am I going to repackage up a perfectly functional and working computer for a refund, print out a shipping label, package it up, send it back to you, and then repurchase the exact same computer for $41.43 cheaper? You're going to get it back in your warehouse, take it out of the shipping box, put it back on a shelf, only to go to your office and see a list of new orders, take it directly back off the shelf, and put it back in the same box and send it back to the same address to the same person who bought it the first time. I mean, we're really going to do that. I'm not a huge hippie, but I do care about the environment a little more than I used to after living in Seattle for 3 years. And this just seems like a supreme waste of resources for everyone involved, including the UPS driver, whom I imagine will be driving a large freight truck completely devoid of parcels, save for a single laptop box being comically and unnecessarily held down by ratchet straps. He probably hasn't seen his family in days, and now has to drive from Seattle to Texas, or wherever you guys are based, because I refuse to simply bend over and accept the fact that you're going to try and capitalize on $41.43 by assuming that I'll cave in and just live with the purchase, instead of going through a long, drawn-out process to save money. I am more stubborn than you, and I analyze every purchase I make in terms of how many times I can go to Chipotle with the money I'm saving. In this case, that number is 5, and that is more than enough for me to tell you to take your overpriced laptop back. I'm being more vindictive than usual about this, because school starts in 5 days for me. At this rate, I'm not going to have the computer by the first day of classes, and while that's not the biggest issue in the world, it is an inconvenience being brought upon me for no other reason than poor customer service from a company that refuses to credit me back the difference in price on a product they themselves lowered the price on 2 hours after I bought it. I swear to you, damn Daniel, I will affix your return shipping label to the box they normally deliver motorcycles in and fill it to the brim with packing peanuts to ship a 2-pound laptop back to you. They'll need a forklift to get the box off the truck. Let me know if I should drop by the Everett Power Sports shipping and receiving department. Hello, this is Damn Daniel. Thank you very much for following up with me, and we appreciate the purchase. I may not be able to refund the amount requested, which is $41.43. However, I'll definitely let you know shortly with how much I'm able to discount. I'll be contacting you within the next few hours or so. I'm on pins and needles, Daniel. 4 minutes? Jesus. Thank you for following up. I am able to apply a $20 discount. Please let me know if that's acceptable. Looking forward to hearing back from you. Hi, Daryl. That sounds great, but where is the remaining $21.43 going to come from? Dennis. Thank you for your offer. I am afraid I must reject it, as there appears to be far more pressing issues with the laptop I have purchased. I am attaching, for your reference, 1 or 2 or 11 photos of the state of the laptop, which I can only describe as being a perpetual state of blue screen horror, and which spirals into a blue screen if you even so much as sneeze in the same room. I was very confused by this. It blue screen of death the very first time I opened the clamshell, which is extremely odd for a brand new factory stock product. I figured it must have auto-updated while in the packaging, or something to that effect, and the update was causing kernel issues. So as soon as I got it out of the BSOD boot loop, which is about 4 cycles, I updated Windows and restarted, only to find myself in the same boot loop. Around the 2nd or 3rd day of using it, I figured I'd start taking a photo every time it crashed to see if the errors were similar. They weren't. This struck me as odd because that would mean it's likely a hard drive issue instead of a software one. And this is, after all, a brand new laptop, right, Daryl? Denise? DeLorean? See, this is where it gets interesting for me. When I pulled the computer out of the box, I noticed that the little anti-tamper adhesive seal was broken, and the adhesive backing has what appears to be cat hair all over it. Look, I do not own a cat. The little chrome Windows logo on the back of the laptop has fingerprints on it under the plastic wrap. The pen nib on the stylus is slightly worn down. Overall, it's still in great condition apart from the small caveat where, due to the aforementioned issue of constant crashing, it literally cannot even remotely function as a laptop. On day 5, the laptop is now failing to hold a charge beyond about 30%. I don't know what state of refurbished you might consider this laptop, Darren, but under no circumstances is it a new product. So, I called Microsoft's tech support line and explained to them the situation and gave them the serial number, which they told me had been registered before. I told them that I purchased this device brand new on Amazon from a questionable company who insists on haggling me over $21 after jacking up the price on a laptop and then subsequently lowering it 2 hours after I had bought it because that makes sense. After a few hours of problem solving and testing, the representative on the phone decided that the best course of action on the Microsoft's part would be to simply replace the defective product with a new one and bring the bad one in for diagnostic testing and eventual recycling. So, congratulations Digital and more, Microsoft is bending over on your behalf and eating the cost of a laptop because you think that repackaging relatively clean laptops with unknown drop histories is an acceptable business practice. So all of this to say, no, I do not find the $20 discount acceptable. The original price that I purchased the laptop was for $921.43. And the price you lowered the laptop subsequently to was $879.99, a difference of $41.43. Unfortunately, by the time I had started having the conversation with you about the price difference, the only screenshot I was able to grab of your retailer selling laptop at a cheaper price was at $887, which makes the difference $34.42. It is entirely up to you which of those numbers you'd like to apply as a discount, although I imagine I know which one you'll be choosing based upon our previous interactions. Truthfully, I do feel like the money is a bit of a compromise. What I'm really after would be a nice seared ahi steak or tilapia braised in wine sauce, because usually when someone screws me this hard, they at least have the decency to take me out to a nice dinner afterward. I suppose the $34.42 will have to suffice. There is a great seafood place around here called Anthony's, and I think $34 is at least enough to utilize the wine pairing menu. So there's that. Your new furbished laptop is on its way to Microsoft in a few days. I strongly suggest you check your stock for other units that might be opened already and remark them as refurbished unless you want similar customer experiences such as this one. I would make some sort of thinly veiled threat about how the price match refund is the only thing keeping me from writing a scathing 1-star review on Amazon of this transaction. But honestly, I really do feel that these long-winded emails get my point across far better than by being unnecessarily bitchy on social media and public review repositories. People are more likely to rate a transaction 1 star and reflect poorly on the seller because Hurricane Irma got in the way of the UPS truck for a day than they are because of some actual issue with something that was the seller's fault in the first place. So I feel they're not an accurate reflection of how a seller does business. Refusing a $40 credit for a price change and then shipping out a broken product, however, is. Good job. Please don't forget to examine the attached images, they're very important to the narrative. Best, Scott. And it's just 6 pictures of the blue screen of death. Gotta say I love that for you, Scott. That is terrible. HB Rider 1 says, I thoroughly enjoyed that the price of a Chipotle is a standard measurement for you. I mean, it really is second nature at this point. A burrito used to cost $6.71 before the prices increased a few months back. I don't like change, and I'm one of those weird people who would eat the same thing for like 90 days straight and be totally happy with it. I'm also a reasonably financially responsible person with a savings account and good purchasing choices, but the one thing I do allow myself to spend money on is purchasing a meal for lunch every day. I don't really like packing my lunch, and it's just one of those vices most people try to eschew, but I allow it as an expense because I enjoy it. So when that choice is compromised, I tend to get angsty about it. I also feel that Chipotle is universally relatable, and almost anyone can understand the pain of losing out on cheap, pseudo-healthy fast food. So I use it often as a relationship building tool with people that I email. 4th and Pike Chipotle? Because somehow that's my favorite Seattle Chipotle, even with the fact that it's basically on the corner of 3rd. I used to go to that one, don't anymore though. Does that guy with the Jesus Saves sign and sermon still camp there, or has he moved on? He's always gone until summer gets close. I figure he'll show back up in May. Oh, you guys know that guy? Now that's over, we're back onto the topic of HOA. Peach Apache says, my HOA is $350 per month. I wish I had your courage, senor. At the very least, make them extract the money with pliers. Don't just hand it over. My fee is exactly the same. You are literally entitled to crap like this. You are giving them over $4,000 a year. Make your concerns voiced. What in the hell? That's a freaking car payment every month, but you can never escape unless you decide to leave your home. When looking for condos around where I live, I think the cheapest fee I found was $200 to $250. Condos are expensive to manage, and unless an owner is involved on the board, they have absolutely no care or concern for why fees raise every year and why that is practically inevitable. They just tramp and act like they are being taken advantage of. The best owners A. know what they bought into, B. maintain at a minimum or enhance what they bought into, and C. do their diligence to understand what's going on or know they aren't doing their part and keep their mouths shut. Captain Tripp says, dear fudging God, that is expensive. My HOA fees are $115 a month, and that includes grass mowing, snow plowing, not just the roads, driveways too, hedge and tree clipping, and street repairs. Screw your HOA. Screw them to death. Jesus. Fudging run for the board just so you can tell them how incompetent they are in an official capacity. OP says, it snowed quite badly in Seattle in early February, and the hill I live on is a convergence zone that averages around 30% or more snow or rainfall than the surrounding area less than a mile away. So while the general metropolitan area got anywhere from 12 to 18 inches, we were sitting around 2.5 feet when all was said and done, and then it stayed cold for the next 2 weeks, so the snow stuck. It was seriously a crap show. I can't share that video, there's lots of swearing in it, but it's hilarious. It's basically like 6 to 8 cars all stuck on the hill because they can't move, and 2 people pushing a car up the hill. The HOA didn't bother plowing until the very first day of warm weather, and then what they actually did to plow, and I find this truly utterly hilarious, was instead of actually paying for a real snowplow to drive through the complex, 2 people must have sat on the hood of the sedan holding snow shovels down while they drove forward, or something to that effect, because we had 2 parallel tracks running the length of the complex like an Autopia-style central median between them. So you could traverse the complex and have a good look at your parking spots, but you couldn't get out of the central median to actually park your fudging car. I drive a WRX with snow tires, which is notoriously awesome in the snow, but it was totally hopeless to actually try to park. My boyfriend drives a 4Runner and he literally had to use the crawl control function just to get out of the median and park in his spot. Anzac87 asks, why not run for the board? I would rather push ball bearings up my pee-pee one by one than put 1 foot in that dumpster fire. I didn't spot anyone suggesting you actually attend meetings. I do make it a point to attend the yearly budget meeting. I'm unfortunately working in the hospital almost always during the monthly smaller meetings they have, which is most likely intentional. My HOA, while dysfunctional, not to the extent of yours, typically has the monthly meetings at 11 AM or 1:30 PM on weekdays. You know, when 90% of said homeowners are at work. It allows the retirees and stay-at-home mums to rule the HOA roost, keep the faith, and hilarious letters. Seeker3 says, genuinely amused that you prefer elaborately, floridly complaining and writing ineffectual emails rather than running for the board on a promise to fix things you complain about. If these people are so terrible, surely it will be easy as pie to vote them out. I guess the emails are funny, but it's all rather self-indulgent. I want you to understand that your suggestion, amid copious other suggestions in this thread to simply run for the board and fix all the things you complain about, is utterly asinine and begets the entire premise of why HOAs have issues in the first place. An HOA board commitment is not some 1 hour per night powwow you have with people to rectify some issues. It's often as time-consuming as a full-time job. Among people who generally reside in communities with an HOA, which is largely working class, there is seldom extra time for the people who would genuinely affect change to actually commit to working on one. The people on my HOA board are all retirees by no small coincidence, because they're the ones who have the time to commit, and because they're the ones with the greatest current interest in keeping the status quo. For the last 2 years, we have had the same board president because she has run unopposed. Nobody enjoys her or her antics, but nobody has the time to run against her. Literally nobody out of an 80-unit complex. You seem to think I sit on my ass all day doing literally nothing but writing emails expecting the world to change, but neglect the fact that the earliest email in this chain was from 2017, a time differential of almost 2 years to write a few paragraphs about some basic crap. I don't subscribe to your false equivalency that not running for the board is analogous to not caring enough to do something about it. Seeker3 claps back. This is a lot of words you have time to type. Run for the fudging board or encourage someone else to if you are so busy. Not to be too melodramatic, but a huge problem in our country right now is people's enthusiasm for complaining and posting on the internet about how creatively they are complaining, and then not doing a goddamn thing to fix the problem. Participate in the solution. What an asinine suggestion. Jesus. I enjoyed the part where you directly respond to literally not one single argument I made. Having 4 minutes to type out a response doesn't really equivocate to what you suggested, but I hope you personally have the time to commit. In regards to the original post last episode, Mrs. Woody96 says, I'm pretty sure they have to provide a report of what the dues cover, what they actually pay for those services, and what is held in savings for big things like roof replacement, painting the building, etc. When they ask for an increase in dues, they are required to state the reason for the increase, such as cost for landscape maintenance increased, or roof will need to be replaced within 2 years and we do not have enough set aside, etc. They are accountable for how they are spending your money. Insist on seeing the breakdowns. Pretty sure if they won't give a reason for the increase, getting a breakdown will be even harder without paying for a lawyer to pry it out of their cold, stupid hands. Find out exactly what the law is regarding disclosure and send them a copy of those laws if they will not provide that information. Not disclosing the budget is a huge red flag and needs to be looked into. Second last comment thread by SweetieT1180. I help manage HOAs and I send letters like these to the board, but yours are hilarious. I love the amount of Chipotle you could buy. I just get ones like, my toilet isn't working, so I refuse to pay my dues. Normally, in the governing documents, it will say the board is required to maintain and repair on a normal basis or they can get in trouble. I'd look there. There is nothing worse than a crappy board. You can vote to have them removed. Or you can step up and volunteer. Even without time to spend on it, that sounds likely to be an improvement all round. How much time does it take to vote against? I see some awful HOA abuses on this sub. I also see victims not using a relatively democratic system to stand up for themselves. Go to the meetings, ask firmly, WTF mate. Tell the secretary you want the answers recorded. Depends on your documents and state laws. Normally, you can get majority vote or signatures from owners to have them removed. It can be hard getting on a board if they like things the way they are. I've seen some really nasty crap pulled with the voting process, or shady boards in general. One I used to manage would turn their backs on the owners at each meetings to discuss things. They bullied people to resign and then put 2 of their friends on. Then they screamed at parents of children that lived there and used the pool. Just really look at your documents if you want answers. Board info is in the bylaws and rules, and state laws are in your CC&Rs. And last one by Deleted. You really think $300 a month is brutally high? OP replies, I can tell from the way you phrased your question that you don't think that's very high, and perhaps relative to other HOA fees, that isn't too bad. But I think what you might have missed from my copious comments throughout this entire thread is that I don't find throwing $350 for screw all in return to be, as other people might say, a good deal. If I paid that and saw substantial return on investment, I would be happy to pay that and more, but I don't. I'm also in Linwood, which is fairly far north of Seattle proper, and paying $25 above the average for Ballard, which is a much more expensive neighborhood, so actually, yes, it is relatively high. And they reply, well, have you seen your expense report? I can tell you that our HOA is high, $500, but the spending breakdown shows where the money is going. Approximately $100 to utilities, $110 to insurance, $90 to reserve fund, $100 to services and maintenance, and $100 to repair. And yeah, that's where I'm going to leave today's episode, guys. Sorry that it was all comments, but I thought they were all relevant and really interesting. This is a Screw HOA complain about the HOA subreddit, so I thought it was appropriate to give this one the dues it deserved. That's all I have to say. If you've got your own stories, I'd love to hear them down in the comments. I'm going to chuck you guys to outro Markee now. Alright guys, that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to tell me what you thought about it down in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel, also don't forget to subscribe. It would really help out with my channel growth. And also, a huge shout out to my channel patrons and members. I just love you guys and thank you for supporting me on this journey. If you guys are new to the channel and you'd like to support me, links are down below for the Patreon, or you can click the join button next to subscribe if you'd like to become a channel member. Alright guys, that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.